B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back on our Tuesday night Shiur Torah, where we're going into the Iggeret HaKodesh, uncovered ground in the spoken world, and delving into the issues of Kedusha, the issues of Jewish intimacy. What are really the details that we need to know in order to not only bring good for ourselves, but also serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu even during those very intimate and private times. Tonight's shiur will be for the Refuah Shlema for Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Rav Ephraim Ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Avimori David Ben Esriya, Immorality Doris Bat Jora, and also for the Atzlacha Rabba for Marsha Bat Julie, Ayla Bat Marsha, Samuel Ben Marsha, Cephas Ben Marsha, Alexander Ben Marsha, Louis Ben Marsha, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides out there that continue to watch our shiurim, continue to learn more about the purpose of our life, how we could serve Hashem better and better each and every single day, and really try to get to the best version of ourselves we possibly can during this opportunity. Now, the reminder for any of you is we still have the raffle / kiruv opportunity on tikkunabrit.live. Anyone that has gotten themselves some USBs, or anyone that hasn't, has the opportunity to get the 8 new USBs that we have. You get yourself 100 of these USBs to give out in your community. And there's 8 different types. You have the Tikkun Abrit, you have Pirkei Avot, amazing questions about God, Stump the Rabbi, Erev Mashiach, Iggeret Ramban, Jewish Ashkafa, and also Bitachon BeHashem. So you have 8 different ones, and they all come in very cool packaging in tin boxes. Baruch Hashem, we've gotten great feedback from them so far. And like I said, if you just want to get them for yourself, then you go to our regular website, BeEzrat Hashem.org, and you could buy yourself the package of the 8 different USBs. If you want to distribute them in your community, you could also enter the raffle for the big event that we have at the Great Synagogue of Jerusalem on August 4th. So the winner of that raffle will win a round-trip ticket from anywhere they are in the world, whether they're in China or in America or Canada or wherever they are. They'll win a round-trip ticket to Eretz Yisrael. They determine themselves their stay and their hotel or so on. That's what they'll have to pay for on their own. But as far as the ticket, that's going to be on us as the winner of the raffle. But either way, the whoever enters the raffle is going to end up being a winner regardless, simply because they will get the USBs, either for us to give out or for them to give out. So we have a few Baruch Hashem people that have jumped on it. Some have gone more, some less, but nonetheless, a few have. But this is certainly an offer that for anyone that cares about kiruv and is able to afford it, should certainly take advantage of it. Even if it's not for the USBs, it's enough of a reason to enter the raffle. And even if it's not for the raffle, it's enough because to enter for the USBs. So with that being said, we're going to go and dive into the series itself and try to uncover some truly amazing ground on the issues of Kedusha, which translates to holiness. This is one of the things that many people really don't understand what holiness is in the world. When they think of holiness, they think of somebody that dresses a certain way, or prays a certain way, or learns a certain amount. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself calls Kedusha the issues between him and her, the issues of morality. And the Yavetz says in his Siddur, there's a Siddur of the Yavetz in page 158, where he says that when their intimacy between a husband and wife have the right kavanah, meaning the right intentions, and it's also during the right times in the right way, then this creates purity that is higher, that is holier than anything else in the world. Meaning that a person can do anything else in the world. They could learn, they could teach, they could pray. They could buy a Sefer Torah. They could donate $1 billion, whatever it is, in order to achieve a higher level of holiness. But the Yavid says the highest level of holiness is when a person is intimate with his spouse, with his wife, and but they're doing it in such a fashion that the Torah ordained it. Now, of course, most people, to them, or intimacy is just a animalistic act. It's something in order to satisfy a person's needs, physical needs. Perhaps it'll also produce a child. Perhaps it's also going to get them to like each other more and be nicer to each other, or be nice to each other beforehand. But in general, when it comes to holiness, very few people actually connect the thought process of holiness with their intimacy with their spouse. Now, this is one of the reasons why, when we discussed the different subjects that we can cover in our shiurim after we're getting closer and closer to the end of the previous series, which was the Iggeret, the letter from the Gaon Vilna, which Baruch Hashem we learned and studied together. We're looking about all different types of topics, and of course, you could easily do many topics that have already been covered. You could easily do a lot of things and add new things to it, new bells and whistles, new chidushim. But when we thought about the issues of Kedusha, we realized that it's not only an extension of the teachings that we've had and really focused on over the last almost 8 years or so, when it comes to wasting seed, morality, modesty, and things of that nature. But also we realize that this beautiful letter from the Ramban and this extraordinary subject is simply uncovered. It's uncovered in the world that's outside of the Bet Midrash, and even inside the Bet Midrash, very few people delve into it. And generally speaking, when HaKodesh Baruch Hu decided that the Torah is going to come to the world, he certainly decided that there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be available, readily available to the masses. Some things are going to be available only to Am Yisrael. Some things are going to be even more unique and are going to be available only to the talmid chachamim. But generally speaking, when it comes to the issues of Kedusha, when you look at the actual subject itself, the books that have been written about it from the Rishonim, the Achronim, the Gemarot that have discussed it, those are things that are in the category of generally available for the masses. They're available to Am Yisrael. They're available for every single person that wants to learn it. And quite frankly, when we thought about it, is that although they are discussed in certain books, the general public is not even aware they exist. And even when they do, they have never truly studied it with a talmid chacham that's going to be able to explain to them the ramifications of things, the details, the behind the scenes, and really give a color to what's actually being written there. Because if you simply read the Iggeret HaKodesh by the Ramban, 9 out of 10 things that are there, the average person is not even going to know what it's talking about. So yes, you can buy the Iggeret HaKodesh, and you could probably even get it online, but to truly understand it requires a lot of effort, a lot of toil, a lot of prayer, that no flaw comes out and no problem comes out of our lips, and we actually say exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, and nothing from our own minds. And most importantly, to teach people this specific subject is really the only way that the masses will ever get to learn it. Because even if you're talking about the average avrech out there, one of our dear avrechim that are learning out there, if they want to learn the subject, they're simply going to go into the books and learn it on their own. They're not going to look for us on YouTube or on BeEzrat Hashem website or the BH app. They're not going to look there. They're going to go to the books themselves. They're going to look into the commentaries, into the sages that discuss this sugya, this subject, and study it like they do anything else. So generally speaking, the subject, teaching it here is not really catered for that talmid chacham, although they're obviously more than welcome to join us. Generally speaking, what we're looking to do here is to educate the masses on this specific and unique and holy subject, because it's truly the only way they're ever going to know the difference between themselves and a wildebeest. and a hippopotamus and a cow and a donkey and a horse. It's truly the only way they're ever going to know this their difference. Because if you say, well, we eat a certain way, we pray a certain way, we do certain things, that's fine. But many of those things are not necessarily what HaKodesh Baruch Hu is going to call holiness. But when it comes to the intimacy of a person, this is nonetheless something that HaKodesh Baruch Hu calls holiness, but only if it's done in a holy way. And a holy way doesn't mean celibacy like the idolatrous church thinks, of simply removing yourself from intimacy altogether, because of course, if that was the case, there simply wouldn't be people in the world. And even more so, it doesn't mean that a person is supposed to only do something once in a blue moon. It doesn't mean that a person should act like do it as often as they desire. It doesn't mean any of those things. And quite frankly, one of the beautiful things that we see from the Iggeret HaKodesh is that he gives you the details, and in such a fashion that if somebody truly studies it, they'll look at the issues of Kedusha, the issues of intimacy, in such a different manner that this in itself will make anybody out there desire to be more frum, desire to be Jewish, desire to be holy, desire to want to get married, desire to have children, desire to have even more children, desire to be closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu even during this state. And of course, that's really the ultimate goal of everything, is to try to get us closer to Hashem, not just to teach a subject that only pertains to a select few, and not to teach a subject that's really going to be so elaborate, so removed from mankind that it's just going to make us look smart, but the rest of the public is not going to benefit out of it. And needless to say, not to teach a subject that perhaps only some people can really understand. This is something that anybody out there can understand, and even the Ramban himself says it in this letter, that this is actually something that even a Gentile, a Noahide, a righteous Noahide can benefit from. Needless to say, this is another push of why we're teaching this to the public, and Baruch Hashem, we've gotten great feedback so far from the first lecture. But one thing that I have found that's common among some of the feedback is that many people are already jumping the gun and are already asking, when do we get to the meat? When do we get to the actual act itself? And who, what, when, where, this, that, and that actually thereby lies the problem with today. Many times we want already the food before we've prepared it. Many times we want the outcome before we've been prepared to know what the journey entails. And really, that's one of the biggest issues we have in the world today, not just in this particular subject, but everything across the board. We're constantly looking for immediate gratification. And it's extraordinarily important for a person to know that the tashmish itself, meaning the connection, the unity between a couple, is not just about the act itself, but also about what happens beforehand, and needless to say, what happens after. But it's critical for a person to know that this doesn't only pertain to the issues of the chibur, the connection between the man and his wife, but also has to do with all of the mitzvot themselves. And this is actually one of the things we're going to learn in Iggeret today. We're still in the pticha, we're still in the forward, the introduction, if you will, to the Iggeret, where the Ramban has told us that he's writing this to a talmid of his, a student of his that is a talmid chacham, that wants to truly know what does intimacy entail according to the Torah. Is it simply just to satisfy the husband's needs? Is it simply to satisfy the wife's needs? Is it something that you're supposed to do as often as possible? Is it something that you should do only at a specific time? Is it something that is so far above and beyond our understanding that we would simply have no capability of learning it, knowing it, and ever fulfilling it? Or is it very different than all of that? And quite frankly, the opposite of most of it. So here the Ramban has already discussed that this is something that a person can do. It's really for anybody. Anybody is capable of doing it. But one prerequisite is to understand is that it's not something that one can achieve just in the bedroom. Meaning that it's if a person wants to be holy, they can't just be holy when they are together with their spouse. That's not a possibility, because holiness is an all-encompassing lifestyle. It's an all-encompassing act. And if a person delves into it, he realizes not only how many details they are, but when they realize the benefits of it in this world, not just the next, the benefits of it, even the biggest atheist in the world that has an open mind to truth will say, you know what, just for this alone, it's worth it to be a righteous Jew. Just for this alone, it's worth it to be a Jew that observes Torah and mitzvot and so on. But again, it's going to take us time to get to the other parts. We have to build it up. We have to learn each and every single word, just like we do all of the other series, in order to truly nurture ourselves with the holiness of the Torah and the words of the sages. So the Ramban started by saying, may the Lord bless thee and keep thee, my brother, being as you are eager and diligent like me to research the ways by which you can realize and be cognizant of awe of the Lord, and thereby will be able to go into the path of the radiant light towards the face of the pure menorah, so that you will be saved from the path of darkness that causes the blind who have never seen the resplendent light which warns one from stumbling. In so many words, he's telling his student that he's writing this book to, he's writing this letter to, that I'm writing this letter to you because you showed me that you want to get closer to HaKodesh Baruch Hu, you want to serve Hashem, and you also want to avoid being one of these blind people out there that may be walking around like everyone else, but has really no concept of what's right or left, what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do, what's the purpose of life, why should you even do good? Can you do good just because it makes you feel good, or is there a bigger purpose? Are you doing mitzvot because Hashem said so, or is there an actual benefit to it, not just in heaven, but also in this world? Is there a risk to avoid that truth? Is there a risk to avoid the Torah? Is there consequences? You don't want to be one of these blind people, and in essence, this is one of the reasons why you're yearning for the truth, even during an act that the average person out there does not even connect to holiness. In fact, there are billions of people in the world, namely from the Christian church, that view the act of intimacy between a man and his wife as something degrading, as something pitiful, as something purely animalistic, something that is not connecting them to God, but thereby perhaps disconnecting them. Now, of course, the way they do it, and the vast majority of the way does it, surely it disconnects them from God. Surely it creates more demons than it creates angels. Surely it creates a lot of damage into the world, and surely it's something that is not the will of Hashem. But that does not mean that that holiness is not available to everybody, if a person would simply sanctify themselves. So the question is how? This student asked this question from the Ramban, who lived about 800 years ago. The translation of this letter was made by an extraordinary talmid chacham and a friend of mine, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Nachman, who's located in Eretz Yisrael. And BeEzrat Hashem, we're delving into this, and Kadosh Baruch Hu will help us and put his words in our mouth, so we could actually sanctify his names and really truly bring honor to him. So now the letter continues, and the Ramban says the following: you have asked me, my brother, to show you the way in which a man may consummate marital union with his wife, so that it will be entirely for the sake of heaven, and thereby merit sons who are scholars of the Torah, worthy and capable of accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. And being as I saw that your thoughts travel the path of truth, I will therefore enlighten you to the gates of righteousness in this manner, so that you may achieve your commendable intention through the truthful Torah of the Lord. May he be praised, so that you may best attain your request I will arrange my remarks for you in 6 chapters, like the arms of the menorah, and I will preface them for you in this first chapter. So here the Ramban already shows his extraordinary level of humility by calling his student achi, my brother. Surely all of Israel are bnei ish echad nachnu, we're all sons of a single man, we're sons of Yaakov, and that's one of the things we learned from the Torah. But typically when a rabbi today speaks to a student, it's rarely do they speak to them in such a tone. If they're a real talmid chacham, they are not going to call their students achi. If they are one of these modern liberal types of rabbis, the student will never call that rabbi. So here we see that the Ramban, one of the holiest people that ever lived, Rabbi Moshe Bar Nachman, calls a student achi, and he says that the whole purpose of this letter is to show you a way of how to consummate your marital union, meaning that there is more to it than just simply physical act. And when a person looks at this, says, what else could there be? What do you want me to pray before it? You want me to do it in pure darkness? Or what do you want me to, what could it all possibly entail? What could it all possibly entail? And when a person learns this, I promise you, you'll see that this is something above and beyond our comprehension. That if it wouldn't come from the Torah, we simply will be absent-minded and would never know. Now, first and foremost, the Ramban says that he's writing this letter in order for a man to la'asot tzrachav yu kulam l'shem shamayim beinyan. So he says that beinyan chibur adam. So he says that this is in order for a man to fulfill his needs, but in such a fashion that it's going to be entirely for the Shem Shamayim, for the sake of heaven. And he's also talking about which particular subject, the marital union. So the first thing we need to understand is, what does the Torah really require us when it comes to marital union? Before we talk about this particular subject, the person needs to know, what is actually a marital union? What does it require? We have a shiur that talks about a kosher intimacy, and in there we delve into a little bit of some things that is required of a marital union. There's of course other lectures we have, but here we're going to cover a few different things that we have and we haven't covered. And one of the things that we know is that the men and women are different. The Gemara says men and women are so different, they might as well be, they're different species. They're like different nations. In essence, a person needs to know that if he is going to be married and to a kosher woman, and if she's going to be married to a kosher husband, don't expect to understand everything about each other. Don't expect to know everything about each other, but at the same token, don't yearn for more. Don't just let things be if there's issues. One of the most important things in a marriage is communication. A couple must communicate. Never allow things to simply simmer and create animosity. But at the same token, there is obviously a physical need. There's a physical need that's involved, both for the man and the woman. And this does have has ramifications, and the way they act and the way that they express themselves. Now, when it comes to the woman, there is a verse in the Torah in Genesis chapter 3, verse 16, where in essence HaKodesh Baruch Hu curses Chava, Eve in English, and says that your craving shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. So this, in essence, is trying to tell us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu instilled into the world a certain law that the wife is going to be controlled by the husband in a typical marriage. Again, we always have to add these, extra adjectives in order to clarify this generation's mindset. Because if you say a couple, sometimes people think a couple also means men and women. If you say certain things, you have to make sure that you are clear. But here we know that the craving of the woman for a husband is certainly there. But at the same token, we also know that a woman that expresses that craving with her mouth is frowned upon. At the same token, we know that the husband rules over her, but many times we see that it's really the woman that runs the house. So, first and foremost, we have to know that there is a couple of major things, a couple of major desires that the man has and the woman has. The first desire that a man has is the physical desire, lustful desire. Now, this lust that a man has is something that is in most normal men. It's not something that a person wants not to have. It's necessary in the world. When the sages at the time of the Bet HaMikdash prayed to HaKodesh Baruch Hu's mercy to remove certain things, certain evil inclinations in the world from the world, they pleaded with him to remove the strength that idolatry had at the time. Surely we still have idolatry in the world today, unfortunately, but Baruch Hashem, it does not have anywhere near the same power as the idolatry of the past generations. But one of the things that the sages asked, the Gemara said, is they asked Hashem to remove the desire for lust, because they thought that people are simply too lustful and they're following all of their physical desires, and it's simply destroying the people, destroying the nation itself, destroying the world. We obviously have well-documented history of what happened at the time of Noach. The entire generation was lustful, was wasting seed, was committing homosexuality, all types of promiscuity, bestiality, all of the filth that could possibly exist, and literally losing their right to exist. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroyed the entire generation with the exception of Noach and his sons, and also Og, the king of Bashan, only keeping him, the Midrash says, for the sake of showing the future generations that will come out of Noach and his children how great, meaning big, the people used to be, and yet they all were destroyed by Hashem. But this was only after the righteous Metushelach passed on. We know that Metushelach was one of the righteous people of the generation, so righteous that HaKadosh Baruch Hu waited for him to die and for him to be mourned for a week. One of the sources for sitting the Shiva when somebody dies, sitting 7 days, is actually in Parashat Noach, even before we received the written Torah. But the point being is that this lustfulness did not stop there. It continued in the generations after, the generation of Sodom and Gomorrah, where they created such physical and spiritual damage in the world that they also lost their right to live. HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroyed all of them, only allowing Lot and his daughters to escape in the merit of Avraham Avinu. But we see that they caused so much damage that even to this day, the immorality is that's in an act to the point of crime is called sodomy. It's named after Sodom and Gomorrah, even to this day. So we see that the impact of those couple of generations certainly applies to us today. But needless to say, the immorality of Egypt is where we learn about also not only the prohibition of promiscuity, but also why the Gentiles lost their right to live in Eretz Yisrael, which was named Canaan. Canaan was full of 7 different nations that were all promiscuous, committing all types of heinous, immoral crimes, bestiality, homosexuality, adultery, and everything the like. This is the reason why they lost their right to live in that holy land. But also we learned from that generation of Egypt, the Ramban, Maimonides, writes the halacha that a woman is prohibited from even being promiscuous with herself, and needless to say, committing lesbian acts, because this is the act of Mitzrayim. This is considered the behavior of the Egyptians. So we see that the Torah, Akdosha, already has everything in it. There are certain things that we've learned from the past, but needless to say, today Your average person out there is not necessarily so much aware of the holy aspect of it. And when you tell a person, listen, the desire of a man for lust is one of the things that will drive them, your average person, yeah, sure, of course. Isn't that it though? No, there are other things. There are other things where one of the things that a man desires is actually is kavod, is honor. He desires honor, from his wife, but that honor is something that doesn't come cheap, because a woman could honor a husband up to a certain point, and he could lose her respect, her desire to honor him with literally just a simple act. Sometimes it's a momentary anger can damage the kavod of the house, the kavod of the husband. Sometimes it's they get into a tiff between them, and there's a few empty words or even vulgar words that are expressed. She calls him a certain name, he calls her a certain name, she tells him go back to your mother, he says to her something else about her mother, and all types of things are exchanged at that moment of anger where the Satan is controlling the house. And this is not something that simply goes away. And many times it's something that requires 50 times as much effort to fix, if fixable at all. So one of the things that a man yearns for is to have his wife honor him. And of course the wife also requires it, but we'll get to her in a moment. But one of the things that he also wants is lust. And what we're seeing also is that a man is willing to forsake his kavod, to forsake his own honor, in order to fulfill his lust. And can literally do anything in order to fulfill that lust, even something shameful during intimacy that he wants to do for the sake of fulfilling his lust. Not realizing that him fulfilling that shameful act very often leads his wife to have less kavod for him, less honor for him after the act is done, especially if she didn't agree to it ahead of time, or it doesn't take her feelings into account, her desires into account. He simply wants to fulfill a certain scratch in his brain that he has. He doesn't care that this act, whatever it may be, is shameful, is strange, is disrespectful to who he presents himself to be. He wants to fulfill that desire, and he's willing to forsake his kavod, even though the rest of the day, when he's not intimate, when he's not fulfilling his lust, all he wants is honor. He wants more money to get more honor. He wants a bigger job in order to get more honor. He wants to look a certain way to get more honor. Many of the things that he does are driven by his yearning for honor. But not realizing that he could lose that honor not just through the obvious fight, misbehavior that could even lead to not just cursing and screaming and yelling, but also lead to hitting, abuse. Abuse comes in all forms of sizes. This obviously leads to a lot of destruction, destroys the children, destroys the unity of the house, destroys the peace in the house, destroys the parnasah. One of the best ways to destroy your bank account, your income, and your future is by having fights in the house between a husband and a wife, and certainly one of the best ways to destroy your kids and cause them to hate everything about anything that you're connected to, even if what you're connected to is the best thing in the world, such as God and the Torah. One of the best ways to destroy it and to serve the Satan instead of serving Hashem is to constantly have fights between the husband and the wife, because that makes the kids want to do everything that you're not doing. If they see that you two religious couple are constantly fighting and you're religious, they don't want to be religious. You keep Shabbat, they don't want to keep Shabbat. You do anything, they don't want to do it. Why? Because they don't want the outcome. They think that the outcomes comes from that. So it's very important for a person to know that there's ramifications for their actions. Now the woman, on the other hand, is very different from the man in a sense that one of the things that is extraordinarily different about her than the man is that she's an emotional thinker. And therefore, at the time of where there are issues, at a time where there are differences, all logical arguments can become worthless. And the only way to succeed with having shlom bayit, with having peace with the wife, is when a husband can bring himself to feel his wife. Not to understand her, but rather to feel her. Now, part of this requires for the husband to know the spiritual level of his wife. Where does she stand? Because if his wife is completely disconnected from God, there's a certain way that he has to communicate to her with. If his wife is connected, but is, let's say, someone that is relatively new or unlearned, he has to communicate with her in a different way. If she's very learned and very connected to Hashem, then he has to communicate with her a different way. One example that I learned from a real-life example, one of the cases that Rav Ephraim dealt with, is actually shows why there are sometimes real good reasons of why a religious person should not marry a Baal Tshuva or a convert. Because although, at face value, everyone looks good, during the shidduch process, if there's attraction there, if there's similar ideology, you already have 90% of the battle achieved. If you have a similar ideology of what you want to achieve in the world, how you want to serve Hashem, and the couple has that in common, if there's an attraction, there's a chemistry between the two of you, certainly this is already most of it. The problem is that sometimes people present themselves in a certain way, but in reality, they're very, very different. And they themselves may not even know how different they are until they actually arrive at that room with their spouse in order to see how that difference is expressed. And one of the cases that Rav Ephraim dealt with is a avrech, young avrech, tzaddik, kodesh kodeshim, his whole life. He's been glued to the Torah, learning Torah and so on, learned how it's a special Am Yisrael is, and when he was introduced to a woman for a shidduch opportunity and heard that she was a Baal Tshuva, he thought what the Gemara says, people that are Baal Tshuva can get to a level that's even higher than people that are righteous their whole life. So he didn't really check who, what, when, and how long she's a Baal Tshuva, where did she really come from, what's the background. He simply said, oh, Baal Tshuva, that's already good, she keeps Shabbat, she's modest, she speaks well, let's get married. Now, this marriage did not last very long. And by not lasting very long, I'm talking about literally a matter of like 2 months or less, which is very, very uncommon in the Jewish world. Why did it last that way? Literally within a week, he was knocking on the door, Rav Ephraim, in the middle of the night, crying hysterical. He says, you have to help me with my wife. She's causing me to waste seed. Causing me to waste seed? Why? She doesn't want to be with you. He goes, no, it's not that. Is that she wants things that I simply can't do. What ends up happening? This girl, before she became a Baal Tshuva, was apparently with an Arab for a long time, the equivalent of marriage, you could say. Now, of course, marriage between a Jew and a Gentile doesn't really exist according to halacha. It's simply a promiscuity and something that's abominable in the eyes of Hashem. But nonetheless, in the eyes of the society and governments and so on, a Jew and a Gentile can have a civil marriage, and according to all of their opinions, it's the same exact thing as anything else. Now, of course, our Torah is very different. And this woman was, in essence, married to an Arab. And these Arabs, for anyone who doesn't know, Arabs are very, very, they could literally bring themselves to such a low level and such an impure level that they literally would be worse than a donkey. Worse than a donkey, the way that they treat their women, the way that they act with them behind closed doors, in front of the doors, doesn't really make much of a difference. And one of the ways they express their animalistic behavior is actually in the bedroom. And this girl, after a few beatings, in order to fulfill this mule's desires, she became accustomed to it. She became accustomed to it, so much so that when she finally escaped the prison of the Arab and went into the holy place of Am Yisrael, she forgot about the fact that she still has these unusual desires. Unusual desires, things that are abnormal, and she expected our new husband to simply fulfill the deed because she has these desires. And of course, a normal person can't do these things. A normal person doesn't want to do these things. And therefore, the marriage ended up breaking. So, to know where the spiritual state of the woman is very, very important. Because if she still has strange desires, if he has strange desires, this has ramifications on the marriage. It doesn't mean they need to break up. It just means it has to be taken into account. Now, how do you deal with this? You have to first and foremost learn where that line is. Where each person has a line that they're not willing to cross. Especially if it's a normal couple that hasn't, impurified themselves. They don't even know what they don't know. They don't know what they do know. They don't know what they want yet. They don't know what they don't want. So there's that line. And a couple has to know where that line is. And at times, they have to stretch that line just to check. To push a little further with certain acts, with certain things to see where is, oh, no, honey, I don't want that. I don't like it. I do like it, whatever it is. How do you do many things? It's the responsibility of the husband to communicate after the act and see if his wife enjoyed herself, if she's sensitive to certain things, if she reacted to certain things. And he himself is responsible to be sensitive to her before, during, and after the actual act, in order to truly have successful chibur, successful unity between him and his wife. He has to discuss certain things with her before, talk to her in a certain way. During, if he wants to talk, see what she reacts to. And also, most importantly, talk to her after. Now just say, listen, you finished your act, okay, you go to sleep, I'm going to sleep, and I finished. Or make me some food and get out of my face. Not like we're not animals, and this is not a fast food restaurant. A person needs to know that there is a obligation to do these things. A person that does these things is going to be able to understand the rest of what I'm talking about. Why does the Ramban take a part of his holy Mishneh Torah and discuss exactly what we're talking about? And here he says, in chapter 15 of Ilchot Ishut, the Rambam, Maimonides, says that when it comes to intimacy, surely a person needs to know that in fulfilling the mitzvah of being fruitful in multiplication is not an obligation on the wife, but is actually an obligation on the husband. And the actual intimacy itself is also an obligation on the husband to fulfill the needs of the wife, not an obligation on the wife to fulfill the needs of the husband. But if the wife refuses to fulfill the needs of the husband for unreasonable reasons, she's called Isha Moredet. And Isha Moredet, you're allowed to kick her out without giving her the get. But if you have a marriage that you're looking to make it successful, not just in an intimate way, but also otherwise, you have to know these two halachot that will follow. And in the 19th halacha of chapter 15, the Rambam says, our sages commanded us that a man honor his wife more than his own person and love her as he loves his own person. If he has financial resources, he should offer her benefits in accordance with his resources. He should not cast an excessive measure of fear over her. He should talk with her gently, being neither sad nor angry. So here we see that there is an actual obligation for the husband to honor his wife more than he honors himself. What does that mean? Your average person out there thinks that he's honoring his girlfriend by opening the door for her, or he's honoring his date by opening the door or paying for dinner. That's what people think is honor today. This is honorable, but not necessarily always. And certainly, if not done for the right reasons, but it's not really honor itself. Honoring your wife more than you honor yourself means that you have to take her into account before yourself across the board. Whether it's behind closed doors, whether it's what are we eating today, whether it's where we're vacationing, whether it's what you're going to do for a living, whether it's the way you communicate, whether it's anything else out there. But a person that thinks that he is one person and she is another person, and they're simply two different units living under a single door, he's going to do what's good for him, she's going to do what's good for her, and once in a while, they're going to, commit human bestiality among each other, and perhaps a few cubs are going to come out. Sure, a few cubs will come out of that, but nothing righteous will come out of that. And most likely divorce will come out of that in just a matter of time. So a person needs to know that honoring your wife is not just a suggestion or good marriage advice, but rather an obligation according to the Torah. Now, of course, all of the feminists are jumping right now as we speak. Oh, I like this rabbi already. Hold on a second. Before you say you like me, you got to look at the next halacha. The next halacha says, and similarly, says the Ramban, they commended a woman to honor her husband exceedingly and to be in awe of him. She should carry out all of her deeds according to his directive, considering him like an officer or a king. She should follow the desire of his heart and shun everything he disdains. This is the custom of holy and pure Jewish women and men in their marriages, and these ways will make their marriage pleasant and praiseworthy. So here we see that the obligation of a woman is not very different. In fact, she's supposed to honor him as if he is a king. What does that mean? That means that the second that he arrives at home, he opens the door, if you're on the phone, that conversation ends. If you're sitting down, you're now standing up. You have to treat your husband as a king. If you want to be treated like a queen, you have to treat him like a king. But even if he's not treating you like a queen, you still are obligated at what you're obligated at. And many times people always say, wait, I'll do it if he does it. I'll do it if she does it. And guess what happens? Nobody does it. And they want to get a divorce. And they want to sleep in 2 different rooms. And he wants to get an apartment down the street away from her. And they want to have Shabbat, but at different people's houses. Why? Because there's no honor, there's no kavod, there's no unity, there's no nothing. It's just 2 people that are not even as good as roommates. Because even roommates have a certain amount of respect for each other and don't curse each other out and don't scream and yell at each other in the middle of the street. But many times people forget that these are Torah obligations. They're not suggestions. It's not marriage advice. It's obligation. Just like you're obligated not to eat pig, you're obligated that you have to observe Shabbat, never drive on Shabbat unless it's a life risk. You're obligated to preserve family purity and so on. It's an obligation to honor your husband. It's an obligation to honor your wife. But in such a fashion that you literally have to look at your husband as if he is a king. In such a fashion that you have to look at your wife as if this woman is someone I need to share everything I produce with. In the same level that I produce it. That means if I'm rich, I can't have my wife look like she's homeless and she's collecting our clothes from garbage pails. Many times men make a lot of money. They buy themselves fancy watches, fancy cars, fancy this, fancy that, whatever touches them. But their wife, she still has the jewelry from her bat mitzvah. She's still wearing the dress from the wedding day 20 years later. She still, is concerned about whether she should buy herself the dollar French fries or the $1.50 lest her husband be upset. Such a husband is not a husband. Such a husband is a spiritual terrorist that lives among you. So a person needs to know they cannot be that spiritual terrorist and even think for a moment that Hashem is pleased with them. That unity starts with how they treat each other. How they treat each other, but not turn everything into simply money, because that money could turn also into a golden prison. Where he says, listen, I honor her. I buy her whatever she wants. She has a $10,000 this, and a $20,000 that, and a brand new car, and a brand new horse, and a brand new this, and a brand new that. Okay, she has all of that, but she also has a husband that instead of saying, I love you, he says a few other things. She also has a husband that as soon as he wants to fulfill intimacy, he cares less what she wants, how she wants, when she wants, because all he wants to do is make that pain that he has, that lust that he has, simply disappear, and cares less about how and who, what, when, and where. So this is a person, obviously, that's not ready to be a good husband. He's ready to fulfill his needs, and he thinks that just by buying her things, he's being a good husband. No, buying her things is good to do and necessary to do, but not if it's going to break the bank, and needless to say, not if you think that's what marriage is about. Most people, especially men, have turned marriage into that. They yearn for success in order to give them freedom to do whatever they want, because they figure that anytime they do something stupid, they could just buy their wife something to pacify her. Buy her a new car, flowers, vacation, jewelry, whatever it is. Just listen, I'll do whatever I want. What, you don't like what I do? Okay, fine. I'll stop. And he doesn't stop, and he continues doing it. Once he sees she got to a certain threshold where she says something, I'm leaving you, or I hate you, or she doesn't want to let him into the bedroom, all of a sudden he appears with some bouquet, or some jewelry, or some things. That's not marriage. That's bribery, perhaps prostitution. It's definitely not Jewish marriage. So a person needs to know, Jewish marriage, if you want it to be holy, from beginning to the actual private part, where private places where you're in a bedroom, to Olam Haba, you have to understand it's a all-encompassing job. All-encompassing job. It's all day, every day. And it doesn't require you to call her 57 times and text message each other every 5 seconds. There's no need for you to text each other every 37 seconds to see what happened in the last 30 seconds. There's no need for that. But there is a need to communicate. There is a need to express honor. There is a need to express love. And that is not always going to come from material. Sometimes it will come from material. Sometimes it comes from a good word. Sometimes it will come from being generous with compliments. Men that are cheap with money are also typically cheap with compliments too. And sometimes men are very generous with money, but still extremely stingy with compliments. Your average woman will take the compliments over the jewelry and over the car. Why? Because that the excitement from the jewelry and the car and the house and the bouquet goes away momentarily. That compliment shows something, it shows thought process. But again, it can't be empty words. Person has to think about these things. And one of the beautiful things we see about tzaddikim, such as Rav Kanievsky and his Alav Shalom and his Rabbanit Batsheva, is their intimacy was literally, it's so beautiful that you saw them saying Birkot HaShachar together. 89 years old, they're saying Birkot HaShachar together. Every day they had a meal together. Every day. Not for 5 hours talking about baseball and basketball. But they had their lunch together. And during that time, the busiest woman in the world, Batsheva Kanievsky, the daughter of Rav Eliashiv, the Masoret of unbelievable lineage, unbelievable Kedusha, and our holy husband, Rav Kanievsky, the son of the Vilna Gaon, who was the talmid of the Sabami Novardok, which many people don't realize, the greatest minds in the last generation. Many of them came from the Musar movement. Many of them came from the Rabbi Israel Misalant, his student, the Sabami Novardok, the Rav Kanievskys of the world. These holy people were not holy because they had a good memory and they knew a lot of Halachot and they knew a lot of Gemarot. They became holy because of how they behaved. And you saw how they behaved not while they were studying, because that the average person doesn't even know how to decipher it. If I told you that Rab Shimon Shkop, also one of the holy sages of the previous generation, was able to retain his focus on a single thing for 18 hours straight. And when his wife told him that he needs to sleep for more than 2 hours, he told her, I don't need to. When she told him, okay, at least lay down to rest your body, he told her, I suffer from resting. Resting causes me suffering. So things like this don't really connect to the average person. But if I tell you that Rav Kanievsky has a video online that you can find, and probably several of them, where he's saying Birkot HaShachar, morning blessings with his wife, like a cute little couple just got married last week. And they have a lunch every single day. And when she has to go to one of the events to make some bride student of hers happy, she wants to go to our wedding, she tells Rav Kanievsky, I'm going to go to a wedding. And he tells her, what time are you going? She's 90 years old. We're not talking about somebody, maybe she has nothing. We're talking about holy people here. What time are you going? I'm going at 7. What time will you be back? Time will you be back? What do you mean? In an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. No. She tells them exactly when she'll be back. When she left, the talmidim of Rav Kanievsky said, Kvod Harav, what do you care? Obviously, your wife's a tzadikah. She's not doing anything bad. What difference does it make? What time she goes, what time she comes back? You're studying Torah anyway. He says, no, you don't understand. When the Rabbanit is not home, I don't study as good. And she knows it. So we need to always know when she's leaving, when she's coming back, exactly to know when I'm going to have my kaparat avonot, suffering. That I'm not going to study as well. So you see the unity that they had, that intimacy, was literally 24 hours a day. And one of the things that many people don't know is Zohar Kadosh says that a couple has to do the best they possibly can to achieve this holiness. Because whether they like it or not, they're stuck with each other. Meaning that whatever you are here is what you're going to be in the next world. You're going to be with each other there too. So if you can't figure out a way to get along and achieve holiness, you're going to suffer also in the next world. Even if you observe Shabbat, even if you eat kosher, even if you give tzedakah, if you don't achieve holiness in this world, that holiness will not suddenly appear in the next world. You're going to suffer from each other even in the next world. And certainly for those people that are not even trying to achieve holiness, they're intermarried, a Jew is married to a non-Jew, or they're simply dating and they're doing all types of sins in the name of freedom. You should know that the Gemara says in several places that when a Jewish man is with a non-Jewish woman, she's glued to him like a dog. What does it mean, glued to him like a dog? Several things. Number one, her neshama, through that intimate act, it connects to his, but not in a natural, positive way, but rather in an unnatural, negative way that causes his soul to suffer already in this world, causes her to suffer already in this world, and it's not going to be disconnected without tshuva. So much so that those souls remain connected in a horrific way, as if they're electrocuting each other, as if they're harming each other, as if they're literally torturing each other. Even in the next world, she won't, even in Gehenom, they're going there together, suffer together, hurting each other there. That's one of the sufferings that happens to intermarriage, which doesn't require actual civil marriage. Intermarriage means a unity, the intimacy between a man and a woman, between a Jew and a Gentile. And even more so, one of the tikkunim, as an act of mercy of Hashem, is to rectify the soul of that Jew, is that he has to come back into this world as a dog. That's why she's glued to him as a dog, is the Arizal says he has to come back into this world as a little lassie, a little Cujo, walking around. Perhaps he'll get neutered, perhaps he'll be used for dog fights, perhaps he'll just fetch balls for the rest of his day, perhaps he's going to relieve himself on your couch. He's going to be maybe your former uncle that was married to some Christine. This is, Rabotai, one of the disasters that happens to people that forsake Hashem and His holy Torah. So a person needs to know that when you compare the marriage of holy people, Rav Kanievsky having Birkot HaShachar, the morning blessings with his wife, having lunch every single day together, even at 80, 90 years old, and showing love to each other in a holy way, even at that time, as if they just got married last week. On the other hand, glued to each other like dogs. What do you want? I don't know. I think the choice is pretty clear, but let's just, before we jump to conclusion, let's continue to see what else does our holy Torah say. So now we have ourselves a situation where we realize that there is a certain responsibility to do things in order to develop a good marriage. But the Ramban says that this is not just for the sake of having a good marriage so you don't go to Gehenom. It's not only for the sake of having a good marriage so you have a peaceful marriage here, but rather that Veyu kulam leshem shamayim, that everything that you do will be for the sake of heaven. And thereby you'll merit sons who are scholars of the Torah, worthy and capable of accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. See here, the Ramban throws us a curveball. Why is this a curveball? Because if you told me, go study Torah for the sake of heaven, I can understand. And even a brand new person can understand. Studying Torah for the sake of heaven, okay, so that means you're going to study Torah not necessarily to show that you're smarter than everybody else, not because you're going to do it for the sake of writing some books so you can make money, not for the sake of doing it for the sake of you developing yourself, if you will, but rather to bring honor to Hashem, to bring nachat to Hashem, to delve into His Torah, to express love to Hashem by delving into His love letter. I'm showing love to Him. So, if you told me, learn Torah for the sake of heaven, I can understand. If you told me, pray for the sake of God, pray for the sake of heaven, I can understand praying, even though technically when I pray for myself, I pray for my family, I pray for Am Yisrael, I pray for different things, because that's what the prayer says. The prayer says, give me sustenance, give me good health, bring Mashiach, destroy the wicked people. That's what the prayer says. But if you told me pray for the sake of heaven, I could understand it. Why? Because I could still utilize my mindset and actually in this brain that you gave me, this neshama that you gave me, and say, wait, I can find a connection between all of those things to the servitude of Hashem. But when you tell me that the unity, the intimacy between a man and his wife, do that for the sake of heaven, without reading what the Holy Torah says, I'm absent-minded. I'm simply confused. I have no idea what you're talking about, because the average mind is full of so much filth that they get from Hollywood and the like, that immediately you're thinking, wait, intimacy for the sake of heaven. Oh yeah, now I know. Bring kids because God likes kids. What if that kid's going to be Hitler? Does God still like him? What if that kid's going to be an atheist? Does God still like him? What if the kid is a mamzer because the girl that you're with is married to somebody else? Does God still like him too? He wants him into the world. What if the kid's going to be like, half a donkey because he makes fun of God his whole life? God's still happy with that one? He's happy that the parents brought this little golden calf into the world. So of course, it cannot be purely for the sake of children. We're not puppies, and we're not, dogs. There's more to it. The Ramban says, all of your acts have to be for the sake of heaven, and you're going to merit as a result of your act itself, the marital union itself being for the sake of heaven. The merit could be sons, but not just any sons. Sons who are scholars in the Torah. So now, if you left things as they are, you have no idea where to go. How does one achieve such holiness in such a physical act? Because your average person thinks, if it's holy, that means I brought kids. Your average secular person thinks of themselves as half religious if they have a lot of kids. Better yet, they figured that that's the mitzvah in the Torah, so Hashem's happy that they had kids. Even if all the kids are driving on Shabbat and married to Goyot and Goyim, there's kids, as if Hashem needs these kids, these little golden calves in the world. No, a person needs to understand is that the goal is not necessarily in line with the journey. Having kids is not it. Those kids have to be Torah observant, connected to God. And not just that, the Ramban says if you do this, those kids will be the best type of kids that exist in the world. Because they will be Torah scholars that teach other people Torah, which is the highest level of expression of love to Hashem. You teach people Torah to get them closer to Hashem. That's kiruv. That's the highest level of expression of love to Hashem. You produce that, you're the best of the best. There's simply nobody better than you. So that means that if they're not observing Torah, certainly it's not achieving that goal. And if they're desecrating the Torah, certainly it's failing at that goal. And needless to say, those kids are not really a merit, because those kids will bring those parents suffering. Lots of suffering in this world and the next. Says the Reshit Chochma that a person that leaves this world without doing TeShuva, without serving HaKodesh Baruch Hu, one of the first ways that punishment is delivered on that person is if that lack of religiosity, that desecration of his Torah, of Hashem's Torah, that desecration of Shabbat, that wasting seed, that promiscuity is due to his parents not sending him to a yeshiva, is due to her parents not sending her to a Jewish seminary, is due to their parents' promiscuity, is due to their parents' behavior, one of the first ways of punishment is that that child will be forced to beat up his own parents in the next world. So a person needs to know that having a child in itself is not necessarily the goal, the objective. Now then you would say, yeah, but isn't there a mitzvah to have fun? Having fun is an outcome of intimacy, but it's not the objective. Having fun, pleasure in itself is an outcome, but not the objective. So a person cannot turn their fulfillment of some desire into the objective, just because that's really what they want, into the will of Hashem, just because it's their objective. So let's see, what does the Ramban say? He says you have to turn everything into the heavenly, for the sake of heaven. For the sake of heaven. So now we're going to look at where else is this written. First place we're going to look at is the halacha. Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch in the Orach Chaim, in chapter 231. First halacha, this siman has only one halacha. The entire siman 231 has one halacha, which is the halacha that we're talking about. And the Baal Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Caro, anyone that read the Magid Mesharim, the conversations between Rabbi Yosef Caro and his angel that was teaching him, the Malach HaMagid, he would see this halacha being repeated in almost every communication between them. In almost every communication, the angel would communicate this to him in one way or another. So much so, it's unbelievable how important this is. Yet, your average person out there will hear this for the first time in their life. So the Baal Shulchan Aruch says the following: אם אי אפשר לא ללמוד בלא שנת הצהריים, ישן. ובלבד שלא יאריך בה, שאסור לישן ביום יותר משנת הסוס שהוא שיטין נשמה. ואף בזה המעט לא תהיה כוונתו להנעת גופו, אלא להחזיק גופו לעבודת השם יתברך. וכן בכל מה שיהנה בעולם הזה לא יכוון להנעתו, אלא לעבודת הבורא יתברך. כדכתיב בכל דרכיך דעו. ואמרו חכמים, כל מעשיך יהיו לשם שמיים, שאפילו דברים של רשות, כגון האכילה והשתייה, וההליכה והישיבה והקימה והתשמיש, והשיחה וכל צרכי גופך, יהיו כולם לעבודת בורכה, או לדבר הגורם עבודתו, שאפילו היה צמא ורעב, אם אכל ושתה להנאותו, אינו משובח. Up to here is where we'll go over, and there's more to it, which we'll go over as well, but I'll translate everything so everybody understands. For the sake of kavod for the Torah, for the sake of also showing people that this actually exists and it's not just some interpretation, a person that understands both languages will see that I'm reading it word for word. This is what the halacha is. The siman, it's called that all of one's intentions will be for the sake of heaven. And he starts as follows. If it's impossible for him to study Torah without sleeping in the afternoon, he should sleep. That's how the halacha starts. Now, anyone that thinks that all halacha is about making sure that the guy that learns Torah gets a little nap in the middle of the afternoon, no. But he says, if it's impossible for him to learn Torah, because he's exhausted. He slept only 2 hours last night, or 4 hours, or 5 hours, or 20 hours, but he's simply exhausted. Or whatever the reason is, he is exhausted and he can't learn Torah. Go to sleep. But, so long as he does not make it long, as it's forbidden to sleep during a day for more than the sleep of a horse, which is 60 breaths. So yes, you can't learn Torah. You need to take a power nap, by all means. But don't turn it into a night nap where you're sleeping for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. No, that's already a sin. If you need a power nap, no problem. Need to get your energy together? No problem. Go do it. But there's also a condition. And it's not just don't make it long, but rather, and even in this little, meaning this short power nap that you're getting, his intent should not be for the pleasure of his body, but rather to strengthen his body for the service of God, may he be blessed. Even if you're going to take that nap in the afternoon, whether it's Shabbat or it's the middle of the week, whatever that nap is, and we're going to go over into the details of what a 60 breaths actually mean at another time. The point is that even if you're going to take that short nap, regardless of what day it is, don't do it just for the sake of pleasuring your body. Oh, you know what? It's really perfect. Right now, everybody left. I'm going to get a nap. He puts himself 87 pillows, perhaps like one of the pharaohs, and he gets his little comfy, and he puts some soft music, maybe a binky too, maybe a little teddy bear, and he naps. All right, see you guys at 11 p.m. No. That's not it. Don't go take a nap and become one of these people that is taking naps for his pleasure. Why? The whole purpose of the nap is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How? Simple. You are napping, you are going to take a rest in order to gain strength, so when you wake up, shortly thereafter, you're going to be able to study. Because right now, you can't study because you're so tired. Right now, you can't pray because you're so tired. So it defeats the purpose for you to stay awake. Because even if you try, you can't do it. So go take a rest, no problem. But make sure that even that rest is not for the sake of pleasuring your body, but rather resting your body in order to be able to serve Hashem. Now, if you think this is it, it's a mistake, because it goes on. And likewise says the Baal Shulchan Aruch, with anything that is pleasant for him in this world, his intent should not be for his pleasure, but rather for the service of his Creator, may he be blessed. As it is written in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6, Shlomo HaMelech says, in all of your ways, know him. B'kol drachecha de'ehu. What does it mean, all your ways, know him? What does it mean, all your ways, know him? That means everything you do. Everything you do, not just when you pray, not just when you do business, not just when you are procreating, not just when you're eating, not just when you are buying, not just when you're selling, everything. From the second you wake up till the second you sleep, and even when you sleep, you have to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu in mind. That is here an halacha. It's not a suggestion. Suggestion are not here. You're not going to find suggestions here. This is halacha, obligation. And the sages says the Rabbi Yosef Caro, in the Shulchan Aruch, same siman, and the sages taught us, let all of your actions be for the sake of heaven. Even optional things, such as eating, drinking, walking, sitting, getting up, intimate relations, and conversation. And all of your bodily needs, all of them should be for the service of your Creator, or for something that enables serving Him. For even if one was thirsty or hungry, if he ate or drank for his pleasure, it's not praiseworthy. So up to here we see already that the Torah obligation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded on us is not to simply think of Him when we pray, think of Him when we study, think of Him when we give tzedakah or do good deeds. No. The obligation is to do everything we do with Him in mind. And by everything, it literally means everything. All of your bodily needs. So that means you eat not because you like this ice cream, not because you like this steak, not because this burger looks so yummy, you're not even sure if it's kosher, but you're still going to take a bite. No. You're going to eat because you have to calculate, wait, is this going to serve Hashem or not? Am I eating to make my belly bigger so even though I'm a man, I look like a pregnant woman? Or am I eating so I have energy and not have to think about food anymore so I can go and learn my Gemara until 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning? What am I eating for? When I'm drinking, am I drinking because I just want to get a little tipsy? Or I just want to satiate my thirst? I want to get a nice Gatorade or Coca-Cola or a bottle of water that's really cold. Is that because I like the taste? Or because I want to feel good because I want to lose weight? Lose weight. I'm going to drink only water. No more Coca-Cola. No more whatever drinks people drink. I'm going to drink water so I can lose weight, so I can become thin. And I can become thin and therefore I'll be better looking. And if I'm better looking, so I could get a shidduch. And if I get a shidduch, then I could get married. And if that's the reason, Hashem says you're doing it wrong. None of it is praiseworthy. All of those things that you do all day are supposed to be done with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in mind. Now the average person is saying, oh, that's too much. You'd be surprised how it's actually not even enough. It's not even enough. It's not as hard as you think. Because you literally, if you want to, you can serve Hashem 1,000,000 times better than you do. By simply thinking of, why am I doing what I'm doing? You get up in the morning. Why? Why do you get up in the morning? Oh, I'm not tired anymore. That's not a reason to get up in the morning. You could just lay down, watch TV, and destroy your life otherwise. Why do you get up in the morning? Oh, I got to go to work. Why do you got to go to work? So I can make money. Why do you have to make money? So I can pay rent. Why do you have to pay rent? Why can't you just live in the streets? No, because it's too cold outside. It's too hot outside. Okay, so you're doing all of that for yourself. If all of what you do is for yourself, that means you're only serving yourself. You're not serving Hashem. No, but I go pray. You pray for who? For yourself or you pray for Hashem? Hashem benefits from your prayer. Oh, I study Torah. You study Torah because Hashem benefits from the Torah or you benefit from the Torah? If all you do is in order to serve yourself, it's not praiseworthy to say the least. But on the other hand, if you do everything you do with a connection to Hashem, you're not only fulfilling the purpose, but you're also living a completely different life. And we'll explain in a moment. And continue the halacha here. And Rabbi Yosef Caro says, rather he should intend to eat and drink for his life sustenance, to serve his Creator. And likewise, even to sit in the council of the righteous, to stand in the place of tzaddikim, and to go in the path of the straight, if he does this for his own pleasure and to fulfill his desire, it's not praiseworthy. Meaning, if he says, you know what, I'm going to be righteous, I'm going to go to the yeshiva, or I'm going to go to shiur, and I'm going to be among all of the tzaddikim over there, so I'm surrounded by really righteous people. If you're next to the righteous people because you want to be next to righteous people, because they're holy, and because you want to maybe take a picture, put it on your Facebook and your Twitter and your TikTok and your PicPoc and all the other things. Nothing's praiseworthy about that. Nothing is praiseworthy about that. You're just fulfilling your desire. Meaning that if you're going to do whatever you do in order to fulfill some type of desire that you have, there's nothing praiseworthy about it. That's not the point of what you're supposed to be doing in this world. Even if it's something as logical as, wait, I'm going to go and sit next to all the big tzaddikim, next to all the big rabbis. Is it not a righteous thing to do? No, it's not. But you can turn it into something that's righteous. It's just by sitting next to them default, or by eating, or by drinking, or by sleeping, or by being intimate, all of those things in there by themselves are not ever automatically a holy thing to do. Even going to Bet Knesset is not necessarily automatically a holy thing to do. If you're going to talk at Bet Knesset, if you're there to socialize with people, if you're there because you don't want people to ask where you are, if you're there for different social reasons, you're there for your own personal purpose, nothing's holy about it. Nothing is praiseworthy about it. If he does so for his own pleasure to fulfill his desire, then it's not praiseworthy. Only when he does it for the sake of heaven. And he gives another example now. And likewise, when laying down. What's lay down? You know, some people have a couch, it's half their house. Why? So they can lie down on the couch, relax, maybe put on some screen, watch something, waste their life away for 3, 4, 5, 6, 17 hours straight, some marathon to Gehenom, and they relax. I just want to relax. I did good things for the last few hours. I want to relax for just as many hours. Can you just relax for just a few hours? Even with laying down, there's no need to say that at a time when he's able to be involved with Torah study and with mitzvot, he should not entice himself with sleep to enjoy himself. Rather, even at a time when he's weary and he needs to sleep in order to rest from his tiredness, from his weariness, if he does so for the pleasure of his body, it's not praiseworthy. Rabbi Yosef Caro is telling you the obligation is so precise that even if it's not so obvious, like, oh, when you relax, don't relax for your own body. When you drink, don't just drink for your body. When you eat, don't just eat for your body. When you sit next to the rabbi, don't just sit next to the rabbi for your body, for your pleasure, for your honor, for your anything. All of that has to be for the sake of heaven. And in fact, when you go to sleep because you're exhausted, you're tired, and we're not talking about the afternoon nap where it has to be limited to time. We're talking about the night nap, the sleep that everybody has to because you simply don't want to lose your mind. That also has to be for the sake of heaven. Even when he goes to sleep, he has to be doing it for the sake of heaven. Rather, he should intend to give sleep to his eyes and rest his body for the requirement of health, so that his mind does not get jumbled during Torah study on the account of sleep deprivation. And likewise with his intimate relations, our subject at hand. Even with the mitzvah of ona'ah, the mitzvah of a specific time that you have to be with your wife, that's obligation of the Torah. If he does this mitzvah for the pleasure of his body, it's disgraceful. Meaning here, if the intimate relations between a husband and his wife, between a wife and a husband, is purely for the sake of their bodily needs, Rabbi Yosef Caro says it's not only not praiseworthy, it's disgraceful. Why? There's simply no difference between you and a cow, or a horse, or some cat, or dog, or anything else. If it's purely for physical, that's it. It's disgraceful. Now you can say, yeah, but what if I'm going to try to have a kid? Try to have a kid. Oh, that's good. And even if his intent is in order that he will produce children that will serve him and take his place, it's not praiseworthy. Meaning, even if it's for the sake of having kids. Why? He figures, listen, I want to have some people to help me with my business. I want to have people that are going to learn from me. I want to have people that are going to, I don't know, be around so I can tell them what to do. Buying slaves is expensive these days, so let me produce a few. He wants to have kids. Says to me, try to have kids, right? Rabbi Yosef Caro says, if it's for that, it's not praiseworthy. It's not disgraceful, but it's certainly not praiseworthy. Rather, he should intend that he will produce children for the service of his Creator. Or he should intend to fulfill the commandment of ona'ah, like someone who is paying his debt. And likewise with conversation, even to recount words of wisdom. He wants to say divrei Torah. Wants to say divrei Torah. You would think saying divrei Torah, automatically that's holy. His intent, even when he says divrei Torah, must be for the service of his Creator, or for something that leads to serving him. If you're saying the words of Torah in order to show people how smart you are, and you're so much smarter than them, or you're saying divrei Torah in order to make some money, or you're saying divrei Torah in order to fool people or intimidate them, not for the sake of heaven, even that is not good. That's not the purpose. The purpose of even your Torah has to have the kavanah. The whole point of why I'm giving the shiur, the whole point of why I'm telling my kids a story, the whole point of why I'm sharing something with my wife is for the sake of heaven. The whole point of why I go to sleep, for the sake of heaven. The whole point of why I eat, for the sake of heaven. The whole point of why I drink, eat, procreate, intimate, everything has to be for the sake of heaven. And then he concludes it by saying that it has to either be for the sake of the service of the Creator or leading for the service of the Creator. Meaning, either my speech is going to be to serve Hashem or to entice somebody else to serve Hashem. Meaning to do kiruv. Kiruv with yourself or kiruv with somebody else. Meaning you can't just simply say divrei Torah stam, just for no reason. Oh, let me tell you a story. Why? I don't know, we have 5 minutes to burn. Let me just tell you a story. No, even that has to be with a purpose. A purpose to serve your Creator or to entice someone, even if that someone is yourself or somebody else, to serve the Creator. All things that a person does, all, sleep, waking up, working, giving, taking, eating, drinking, procreating, intimacy, anything that a person does has to be with a kavanah, a purpose to serve the Creator. The principle of the matter is that one is obligated to put his eyes and his heart to his ways and evaluate all of his actions on the scales of his intellect. So when he sees something that will bring him to serving the Creator, may he be blessed, he should do it. But if it will not, he should not do it. And one who acts like this will be serving his Creator constantly. There lies the secret of Moshe Rabbeinu. There lies the secret of Avraham Avinu, of David HaMelech, of all of the holy people that literally cleaved themselves to HaKodesh Baruch Hu simply with this halacha. I am going to do things only if that's going to bring me closer to my Creator. How do I know it's going to bring me closer to my Creator? That by me doing it, I'm serving Him. And anything that's not serving Him, I'm not doing. Now, if a person thinks that they can do this naturally, they're fooling themselves. That's why the Rabbi Yosef Caro says he has to think about it. He has to use his intellect before he does everything. Wakes up in the morning. You say, Modeh ani lefanecha. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Why thank you if you're going to forget about God for the next few hours? Oh, you go to the bathroom. Even that has to be for the sake of God. Why do you have to be for the sake of God? Simple. You have to have a clean body before you pray to Him. Keeping filth inside your body does not make you a very good vessel when you're praying to Him or studying His Torah. So a person, especially if they have to urinate, they should never ever hold it. Immediately stop themselves and go and relieve themselves. A person that thinks about, even bathroom, I have to think about God. Why do you have to take a shower? To be clean before your God. Why do I have to wash my mouth? To have a clean mouth before you speak his name. You're not allowed to speak his name with a filthy mouth. Now, it doesn't necessarily require brushing your teeth with the greatest toothbrush and toothpaste that ever existed. It's simply washing your mouth. But nonetheless, that washing of your mouth is a servitude of Hashem. Then you go, okay, I'm going to pray. Are you praying for yourself and the stuff you want God to do for you? Or are you praying to bring honor to his name? Oh, I'm going to go to work. Are you going to work so you can go make some money, show off in front of people how much money you have and how good you are at your job? Or are you going to go to work so you can sanctify Hashem's name while you're at work, showing people that you're a religious Jew, showing people that you're a servant of Hashem, the way you behave, the way you look, the way you don't look, the way you eat, the way you don't eat, the where you don't eat, where you go, what you go, everything. And not only that, the money that you make, what you're going to do with it. Now, sometimes people have a desire to do good, but that does not make them good according to the Torah. Many times people say, well, I'm a good person, I do good things, I'm charitable, I help people. Rabotai, Rabbi Yosef Caro just uncovered something for us that showed us that good must be defined by God in order for it to be good. Because if you leave it to man, you're one stone throw away from Hitler. Because everyone thinks that whatever they're doing is good, or else they wouldn't do it. Even the people that do evil justify the evil as good, as the better good, or the lesser evil, and thereby good. So therefore, Rabbi Yosef Caro says that everything that we do must have heaven in mind, as this is my servitude of God. I spoke to one of my students recently that has literally a desire to give. They want to give. It's one of these things. There are some unique people in the world where they like to give. And I explained to them, if you donated this money to XYZ cause because it makes you feel good that these little kids are going to eat, it makes you feel good that those trees are going to grow, it makes you feel all warm and good inside that those dogs are going to stay alive, it makes you feel good that the Torah is going to be written in a scroll that's from 6,000 years ago. Makes you feel good. Doesn't make it good. Doesn't make it good. According to God, doesn't make it good. Makes you feel good. Some people like to eat ice cream because that makes them feel good. Some people like to eat bacon, egg, and cheese because that makes them look good. Some people like to get married, have children, and raise a family. That makes them feel good. Some people like to break a family and go after their lusts and commit adultery and cheat and lie and live multiple lives. That makes them feel good. Some people like to steal because that makes them feel good. And guess what? Some people like to give because that makes them feel good. And you know what they all have in common? None of them are good according to God. Why? Because all they're doing is fulfilling their desire. They have a desire that's programmed in their neshama, programmed in their body, that they want to fulfill. He wants to fulfill the lust of this. She wants to fulfill the lust of that. He wants physical, she wants spiritual, he wants this, she wants that. And they're doing it whatever makes them feel good. If you're doing it because it makes you feel good, because those kids in Zimbabwe are going to eat now and the trees are going to grow in Indonesia and the little mouse is not going to die in Africa, all that stuff makes you feel good, does not make it good. Makes you feel good, but doesn't make it good. For it to be good, it has to be defined by the master of good, HaKodesh Baruch Hu. And for that to be good, Rabbi Yosef Caro says to us, it has to have heaven in mind. Not heaven probably likes what I'm doing, because why would God want these people to not have food? So he must be happy that I'm feeding them. Why would God not want these trees to grow? He must be happy that I'm donating money to get these trees to grow. Why would God not want water in this part of the world? He must be happy with that I'm donating to make sure that there's water in some part of the world. He must be happy with it. According to the Torah, you're happy with it. Him happy with it? Not necessarily. Why? Because there's priorities. And even the way that you give has to have heaven in mind and not your own desires. If you're doing it because it makes you feel good, and you're assuming God agrees with you, more times than not, you're going to be wrong. And what you did is simply fulfilling your desire and is not for heaven, but rather for yourself. To be good, you have to see what God's will is. What is the will of God? For these trees to grow or for his children to grow in Torah? What is the will of God? For more people to get closer to him and serve him? Or some dogs to stay alive? Or perhaps a butterfly not become extinct? What's more critical? To go help a bunch of Gentiles that are supposed to have 8 other billion people help them? Or to go help Am Yisrael, that is the apple in his eye, his chosen people? What's the greatest good? To publicize Torah or to publicize your name? Which one are you doing? Which one is becoming more public? Your name? In every charitable causes database, your name is appearing? Or is God's name? When a person does good things and thinks that automatically God is satisfied with them, that means they haven't read this halacha. And certainly they haven't read what the Ramban says. Because he is telling us, if we had God in mind in every one of our actions from the minute that we woke up, if we went to work for the sake of God, if we went to sleep for the sake of God, if we studied for the sake of God, if we prayed for the sake of God, if we did everything we did for the sake of God, for the honor of Hashem, to bring Hashem nachat, it becomes easier for us to direct the good we do to be in line with the good he wants. Why? Because we're constantly thinking about what does he want. Because I'm only going to do it if that's what Hashem wills. Not if Hashem allows, but if he wills it. Meaning he wants you to do this. He gave you this blessing of eyes, ears, nose, whatever it is, money, whatever profession, expertise, thoughts, words. He allows you to use it the way you want to use it. But he wants you to do it the way that's going to bring him more honor, because that's you serving him. And you serving him is the best thing you can do for yourself. So now, when a person redirects their mind in such a fashion and starts operating in such a way where it's not like the past lectures we had, where to have fear of heaven, a person simply has to look at allowed or not allowed. Do what's allowed when it's allowed, and don't do what's not allowed, regardless of when. Now we're upgrading that. Now we're looking at, you're actually supposed to not just think about what's allowed, what's not allowed, but also look at what's going to be serving Hashem versus serving myself and my desires. If a person thinks of things from that part of their mind, that part of their soul, it becomes much easier to understand that even during the tashmish, even during the intimacy, the unity between a husband and his wife, they're actually supposed to be serving Hashem. Now, how and when, we'll explain. But we see here already that the Ramban is telling us to look at things from a completely different perspective than what we thought was normal. We figured you eat so you don't die. You drink so you don't die. You make money so you don't die. You go to work so you don't die. You donate so, well, I guess you don't die. Everything, why do you do everything? No. Everything is supposed to serve Hashem. Everything has to be for the sake of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, a person can say, I want to eat ice cream. I want to eat ice cream. The average person say, oh, if you want to serve Hashem, you can never eat ice cream. And that's wrong. Why is that wrong? Years ago, the Gaon Vilna was among us. And something impossible to understand how extraordinary his wisdom was. People think that they learn a few books and even write a few. And they already think of themselves as a Gaon. And already they're disagreeing with the sages of 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Needless to say, they can't even comprehend the wisdom of recent or later sages. Needless to say, the Gaon Vilna. One time there was a talmid, serious talmid, said to the Gaon Vilna, Kvod Rav, I completed Masechet Sukkah. And the Gaon says to him, do it again. He said, but I did it. Let's do it again. Study again. Go over it again. So he completed it again over a period of time. And he came back to the Gaon. He said, Kvod Rav, I finished Masechet Sukkah. The Gaon Vilna says to him, do it again. He said, but I did it. For what purpose? I know the Masechet. He asked me a question. I know the Masechet. The Gaon Vilna says to him, okay, let's test you. How many times in Masechet Sukkah does a unkosher Sukkah appear in the Masechet? Now for anybody that studied Gemara, especially if they studied Masechet Sukkah, knows that there's nothing that appears in the Masechet that says such a thing. Needless to say, even if you use the computer, you can't find the answer. In those days, there's no computers. There's the Gaon Vilna that's better than a computer. But the computers, go look in a computer, you're never going to find it. The guy says, no. How many times does a non-kosher Sukkah appear in Masechet Sukkah? I have no idea. No, just ask me general questions. Gaon Vilna says to him, 85 times. Is this just some number that you know? Do you remember? No. He says, Sukkah, you could spell in multiple ways. You could spell it with Samech Vav Chav Hei, or you can remove the Vav. And thereby, the Gematria of Sukkah without the Vav is 85. That's the number of times that this, in essence, a Sukkah that's missing a part, makes it not kosher. That's how many times the non-kosher Sukkah appears in the Masechet. Now, of course, to know how many times, you actually had to know the conclusion of every single sugya that mentions Sukkah in the Masechet, and also all of the sentences and words that are said in the Masechet whenever it's implying that something is kosher or not kosher, not just the conclusions, but also the arguments themselves, and needless to say, some way to commit it to memory. And he not only committed it to memory in such a fashion, but he gives you an explanation for the way he committed it to memory. And in a simple fashion, that to you, oh no, yeah, Sukkah, that means 85, yeah, for sure. Go figure out how you got the number. So, the wisdom of the Gaon Vilna is truly incomprehensible. One time, he's sitting studying the Bet Midrash, and the Russians, soldiers, Goyim, barge into the place, starts throwing tables and chairs, different talmidim running away, scared to death. The Gaon Vilna sitting there with his talit and tefillin, learning his Torah, unmoved, unshaken. And their goal is to get to him. They heard about him. As they get closer, they keep throwing things, moving things, causing noise. Everyone's running, doesn't know what to do. These guys have big guns. The Gaon Vilna studying his Torah like nothing happened. As they get closer and closer, and they're literally only a few feet away, the Gaon Vilna takes his talit and folds it over, uncovering his tefillin of the head. As soon as the Russians see this, they get so petrified, so scared, they start screaming and run out. Now, as soon as these Russian soldiers ran out, the talmidim came back. They saw all this. And he said, Kvod Rav, what did you do? What is this sgula that you did? The Gaon Vilna says to them, there's no sgula. It simply says in the Torah, in chapter 28, verse 10 of the book of Deuteronomy, and all of the nations saw the name of Hashem upon you and feared you. And we know that the Gemara in Masechet Brachot, page 6b, says that this name of Hashem being on you, says Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, is referring to the tefillin. Tefillin shebarosh, the head tefillin. So they say to him, okay, Kvod Rav, all of us were wearing tefillin. Not only they didn't run away from us, we ran from them. So the Gaon Vilna says to them, he says, why do you think it says tefillin shebarosh and not tefillin she'alarosh? Because alarosh means the tefillin that are on the head. But tefillin barosh means the tefillin are in the head. If your tefillin are on your mind every single second that you're wearing them, you're constantly thinking about tefillin. Just like the Gemara Masechet Shabbat says, a person should never have tefillin on his head if they're not on his mind. If you're thinking about baseball, basketball, social conversations, whatever it is, even things that are permissible to talk about without tefillin, if you're not thinking about the tefillin being on your head, you should not wear tefillin. Some real serious tzaddikim that I know, they wear tefillin for a very, very short period of time because they know how dangerous it is to have tefillin on your head and not think about tefillin. Some people, no, I'm going to have my tefillin sitting on me for hours. And, while they're socializing, while they're chit-chatting, while they're this, while they're that. Sometimes they're thinking about foreign thoughts, women, Hashem Elachem, bringing damage to themselves with the tefillin on. You think about a woman, even if that woman is your wife, while you have your tefillin on, you have a very serious problem. Very serious problem. So a person needs to realize tefillin is a very big deal. The Gaon Vilna says, it says tefillin shebarosh because it's supposed to be inside you. At all times you have to think about these tefillin. At all times, they're on you. So when you're fulfilling God's commandment and the tefillin are in your head and not just on your head, then the rest of the verse is fulfilled. It says that when the nations see the name of God in your head, they'll fear you. The rest of the verse get fulfilled. So it's not a sgula. It's simply fulfilling the Torah. Now this means, Rabotai, when HaKodesh Baruch Hu says, V'kol ma'asecha yu l'shem shamayim, when the Ramban says, V'kol ma'asecha yu l'shem shamayim, that all of your actions will be for the sake of heaven, this also tells us that even eating ice cream, as silly as that may sound, could be a way to serve Hashem. Eating a Twizzler, eating candy, eating whatever it is. How? Why are you eating it? Are you eating this ice cream because it tastes good? Because you're hot? Or are you eating this ice cream because it's going to help you serve Hashem? Because now you're so hot. So even studying, you can't even focus. So you're going to eat this ice cream to cool yourself down and therefore be able to learn Torah. You're going to eat this whatever candy so you're staying awake so you can learn Torah. So you could pray better. So you could teach better. Why are you eating it? Why are you doing it? If it's for the ultimate purpose is to bring you to serve Hashem better, a lot of things are allowed. If it's simply to fulfill our desires, almost nothing is allowed. So now, the Ramban says that we have to do it in order to achieve this goal, we have to do everything for the sake of heaven. And one of the merits we can merit is to have sons who are scholars in the Torah. Now the Gemara in Masechet Reuven, page 100b. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, every woman who petitions her husband to engage in marital relations will have children the like of whom did not even exist in the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu. Because in regards to the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu, it's written in Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 13, when Moshe Rabbeinu tells the people that he intends to appoint men to share judgeship with him, take for yourself men who are wise and understanding and known to your tribes. But later it's written that he took men that achieved only part of that purpose. So here it says that if a woman petitions her husband to engage in marital relations, she could have wise children, like the Ramban is saying, that even at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, where there were extraordinarily wise men, even then they didn't exist. Meaning she could literally bring such a special soul. Her and her husband can pull such an extraordinary soul, such an extraordinary neshama into this world that even the Dora De'ah, the generation of knowledge of Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have. What's the source? One of the sources the Gemara says is Leah. Leah, the wife of Yaakov, in chapter 30, verse 16, after she makes the deal with Rachel to sell her the dudim, these special flowers that are good for fertility that Rachel got from her. So the deal was, she gives her the flowers that her son Reuven got her. She gives it to Rachel. In exchange, Leah is going to have Yaakov visit her that night and be with her that night. That was technically Rachel's night. And it says in the Pasuk in chapter 30, verse 16, and Leah went out to meet him, to meet Yaakov, and she said, you shall come to me, for I have indeed hired you. So here we see that Leah petitioned Yaakov. And the result of that union was Issachar, her son Issachar. And on Issachar, it's written in Chronicles 1, chapter 12, verse 33, from the sons of Issachar, those with a profound understanding of the times, to know what Israel should do, 200 chiefs together with all of their brothers by their order. So the verse, in essence, is saying that the tribe of Issachar included men of understanding, meaning extraordinary men. There were huge wisdom that they had. So from here we see something that could easily confuse a person. Why? Because it says, if the wife petitions the husband, scholars will come out of it. Okay. But the same token, the Gemara also tells us that the woman is not supposed to tell her husband, hey, let's go upstairs now, 5 minutes. Chas v'shalom. In fact, there's multiple things that the Gemara says that there are certain curses that were given to Chava that are in essence a woman has to deal with today, such as the menstrual blood, the blood of virginity, the anguish of raising children, childbearing, pregnancy, certain things that a woman is, in essence, living with in this world. And one of them is what we read about before. Ve'elishcha teshukatech, ve'elishech teshukatech, that your craving shall be for your husband. So this teaches that the woman yearns for her husband when he leaves on a journey, and he shall rule over her. This teaches that a woman petitions her husband to engage in marital relations in her heart, whereas a man petitions his wife verbally. So, what the Rabbi Nachmani is in essence saying is that if she does it the way the Torah says, this is commendable. So commendable that the result of that act could literally bring extraordinary scholars into the world, beautiful, holy neshamot into the world that didn't even exist at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. If she does it like the freaks of nature that live in the world today, she'll bring some golden calf to the world. Tell her husband, yeah, come on, 5 minutes from now. One of those things, she says with her mouth, no. So how does she do it? Simple. The way she behaves. The way she acts. When the husband wants something, he can say it with he can say something. Of course, with manners, with derech eretz. But when she wants to be with him, she has to do it in a different way. She has to petition him in a different way. Certain things, some things that the world calls flirting, some people call it other things, but nonetheless, it's not saying it outright. Now, in the Gemara Masechet Sukkah, we're going to develop this thought further. Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yafet says in the name of Rabbi Elazar that whoever sanctifies himself during the cohabitation, during the intimacy between him and his wife, will merit to have male children. For it's stated, you shall sanctify yourselves and you shall be holy. And right after it, it says, and a woman conceives and gives birth to a male. This is in a Leviticus. So, the Torah says that if you've prepared a certain way, mentally, physically, and so on, and you want to bring male sons into the world, perhaps when they saw it, when they wrote it, not everybody understood what male sons meant as much as people understand today what male sons mean. Because sometimes you have people that have a son, you're not really sure what it is. Sometimes you could uncover it early and bring them the cure early, more Torah, more prayers. Sometimes the parents ruin the kid. They decide he's not male. So of course, when we pray for a male son, we're praying for someone that's not just masculine and butchy and wants to beat up everybody, but a person that is in essence going to be a servant of Hashem. And it says here that if a person sanctifies themselves, they're going to merit to have male children. Because we see that the verse that says, you shall sanctify yourself, because Hashem is holy, that is right next to the part of the Gemara that says that the woman is going to bear a child, bear a boy. Now the question is, although this says that sanctifying yourself is going to bring a birth of a male, it doesn't say that this male is going to be a talmid chacham like the Ramban said. Because the Ramban says that if you sanctify yourself, you do everything for the sake of heaven, it's going to bring you male children, but also they're going to be scholars. So, if you look at the commentary on this Gemara in Masechet Sukkah by the Rif, Rabbi Yitzchak Alfasi. He was a generation before the Ramban. He gave him a blessing, and the Ramban wrote a book defending his honor. Now, the Rif, he comments on this, sanctifying yourself for the sake of bringing a male child. And he brings Masechet Nedarim. Masechet Nedarim, page 20b, has a extraordinary story with a lot of musar in it. The sages noticed that Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol is the rabbi of Rabbi Akiva. He was not only himself the Gadol Adol, Kodesh Kodashim, the rabbi of Rabbi Akiva, just to say the least here, to understand the magnitude of this giant, but they also noticed that all of his sons were beautiful, not just in actions, but physically beautiful. And they went to his wife. Her name was Ima Shalom. And they asked Ima Shalom, how are your children seemingly beautiful? Yeah, listen, it's not, obviously they realize it has nothing to do with physical features, DNA. This is unusual beauty. Beauty in actions, beauty in physical, something that is uncommon, and not just one of them, but all of them, one after another. Ima Shalom speaks to the sages the way that her husband taught her. She was a very holy woman, and we learn also a lot from the way she spoke. She says to them, my husband converses with me neither at the beginning of the night nor at the end of the night, but only at midnight. And when he converses with me, he reveals a tefach and covers a tefach. And it seems to him as though he was forced by a demon. And when I asked him, what's the reason? He answered me so that I do not set my eyes on another woman, because then his children would come close to being mamzerim. Person that learns this Gemara for the first time in their life without commentary is dumbfounded, to say the least, does not think anything positive as a result, and confused. But that's what we have to learn, even the stories, and understand that the chachamim, if they were angels, then the generation after them were men. But if we think of them as just simple men, then certainly we are donkeys. So Ima Shalom speaks to the sages and says to them in a certain fashion that even the way that she converses with them, the word she chooses, in essence to teach something that's holy, has to be done in a modest way. And she says to them that when he converses with me, what is she talking about? The time that the husband is with the wife. He's not together, he's not conversing with me in the beginning of the night or at the end of the night, but in the middle of the night, meaning that we're only together at a specific time. The ideal time, according to the Torah, is after Chatzot, approximately Chatzot, which we'll discuss at a later time. We are together at that time. We're not together early. We're not, certainly not during the day. Certainly not too late when we're too tired. It's a specific time. And not only that, when he converses with me, he reveals a tefach and covers a tefach. Meaning that he is so modest with the way he treats my body and the way he treats his body, that most of the Rishonim say every time he uncovers a part, he covers another part. He realizes that, yes, according to halacha, you could, and according to Kabbalah even, you should be completely uncovered, just under a cover, but nonetheless uncovered between man and wife, that their skin is touching. But he is bringing a certain chassidut to himself, that although things are uncovered, but what's not necessary stays covered for the sake of modesty. Because even then, HaKodesh Baruch Hu is in his mind. Every tefach that he uncovers, he covers another tefach. On himself and on me. And it seems that he's forced by a demon. What does it mean he's forced by a demon? It's clear that when we're together, he is doing everything he possibly can in order to fulfill the mitzvah, to make this act purely for the sake of heaven, as if he doesn't have any desires for it. Not to fulfill his own pleasures. He is doing it to fulfill the sake of the will of heaven. The way he does, how he does, when, who, what, everything that he does, it's as if somebody has taken over him and he's like somebody else that is pure servant of Hashem. Like as if he's possessed. His neshama has left him. And I asked them, she said, because the rabbis were confused. Well, what do you mean? I mean, isn't it a mitzvah to do this, to do that? She said, I asked him the same thing. Why do you do it this way? Cover only a limited part, uncover a limited part, specific time, do it, in such a fashion to not, some say, do it purely for the sake of heaven, meaning meant quick. Others said that doing it for the sake of heaven, meaning purely to give her pleasure, so she climaxes first and he second. She asked him why. He says, so that I do not set my eyes on another woman. Because if I think about another woman during our conversation or during our intimacy, whatever comes out of it, it will be damaged. So much so that even during the talking part, where he's making me laugh, he's making me happy, he's bringing the mood up to where it needs to be, both for the man and for the woman, even then he does it in such a specific way, with so much thought into it. And when I asked him why, he says, because if we do it early in a day, meaning early at night, it could be at a time that one of the neighbors is awake. And one of the neighbors is awake, they can talk among each other. What are you eating? What are you drinking? What are you watching? What are you reading? How are you? You hear some other woman's voice. If that woman's voice, I hear that woman's voice while we're together, for a second even, she will be in my mind. And if I'm with you, with a second, she's on my mind, already that could lead to damaged kids. Already. During the conversation itself has to be in such a fashion that only you are on my mind. I'm not going to mention your friends, your sisters, your cousins, your mother, your employee, your this, your that. No, only you are on my mind. Why? Chash v'shalom, that another woman enter our conversation. Why? If another woman's entered our conversation, it's like as if I was with that woman. Because if she's in the conversation, surely it's possible for her to enter my mind while we're together. And if she's in my mind while we're together, some sages have said it's as if you were with that woman and the child that comes from it is like an adulterous child. So from here we see, Rabotai, the woman that was the wife of Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinos, Rabbi Eliezer Gadol, gives musar to every lady out there of what she should look for, not in a future husband, because surely most people that you're about to marry are not at this level, but why she should look for a husband that learns Torah regularly and literally make no exceptions whatsoever if the husband doesn't learn every day. Because if your husband learns every day, surely he could acquire, perhaps not what Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinos did, but he could aspire to have at least some of it. Needless to say, he could achieve not having another woman on his mind. Now what about those people that don't really think it's a big deal? They don't think it's a big deal. They think this is fanaticism. The Gemara says in Masechet Nedarim, page 28, that whoever looks at other women that are not his wife. This is the name of Rabbi Acha, the son of Rabbi Yoshua, Yoshaya. Whoever looks at women will ultimately come to sins. And also, the children that they will have will not have good character. Meaning, they'll be these types of people like little Hitlers, little criminals. Why? The husband likes to look at girls on the internet, in real life. Oh, honey, don't you think she's pretty? He tells that to his wife. And then he's surprised that his 3 little golden calves and 1 donkey are calling him Abba. Further, says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Devai says that the ministering angels told him 4 things. Why are there lame people? Because people are intimate in a unusual way. They overturn the table. Why are there mute people? Because of people that kiss that place. We'll discuss the halacha and the kedusha aspect of certain things and that you should avoid and certain things you should do. But needless to say, some kids are born mute. The ministering angel says that's the reason. There are people who are both mute and deaf. Why? Because they converse at the time of cohabitation in a horrific ways. Why are there blind people? Because of people that look at that place. So we see that even the way that a person is intimate has significance. Significant ramifications, to say it. Now, the Gemara also says in page 20b that a man should not drink this cup while setting his eyes on another cup. Meaning he should never be with his wife while thinking about another woman. Even if the other woman is not his wife and he never touched her. In today's world, unfortunately, this is one of the solution of the psychiatrists that are psychopaths themselves. If a man is not into his wife, they tell him, why don't you think about something else? If she's not to her husband, they tell him, why don't you guys watch movies together, all types of filth and disgust. Gemara says the exact opposite. Not even allowed to be together if you're thinking about somebody else. Now, one of the outcomes of not following the laws of Kedusha, and in essence, the things that the Ramban is saying, is not just problems in marriage and so on, but also the children, as we saw so far. But then there's another detail over here. And the Gemara says, in the name of Rabbi Levi, he says that there are certain children that are rebels. And they specifically rebel against Hashem. They are degenerate children. Heretics, atheists, sociopaths, all types of things. Who are these children? Where do they come from? Children of fear. If the husband likes to scare his wife, the children that will come out of it will be very problematic. Children of forced woman. He forced his wife to be together with him, which is forbidden according to the Torah. The children that will come out of it will be a disaster. Children of a hated woman. All he thinks about is his own needs. Cares less about his wife. Uses her like a garbage pail. Children that will come out of that will be a disaster. Children of a excommunicated man. If he is a heretic himself, the community has excommunicated him for different reasons. Children that will come out of such a person will be very problematic. Children of a exchange woman. This is when the time used to be with polygamy, where a man was married to 2 wives, and he didn't know which one he was with because he didn't do it for the sake of heaven. Children of strife, where they just had a fight, and instead of talking it out and understanding where everybody went wrong, he did this wrong, she did that wrong, he apologized, she apologized. No, what do? They act like animals. What? Let's take out our frustrations on our bodies. Children that will come out of that will be degenerates. Children of drunkenness. They had a few drinks or a few too much, and then they want to have a good time. Children that will come out of that will also be drunk, but even without the drink. Children of a woman who has been divorced in the mind of her husband. He already decided he's not going to be with her anymore. I'm leaving her. Comes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, this week or this next month, that's it, I'm giving her the get. But, for all good times, for good time's sake. Here in his mind, he's divorcing her, but he's with her again. Child that comes out of that will be degenerate, will cause him suffering the rest of his life. Children of mingling. Albuvia. This is a woman that was with several men, and she doesn't know who the husband is. Common in the world today, unfortunately. They have entire television shows that were made fortunes off of people being promiscuous and not knowing who the father is of their kid. Made the DNA test popular. Shem Yirachem. Children of a chatzufa, a brazen woman. What's a brazen woman? Honey, meet you upstairs. But that's the wife saying. That's a brazen woman. That's a chatzufa. A woman that tells her husband when to do, how to do all the different things outright. That's chatzufa. Children that will come out of that woman, little cats will be preferable. Why? Because, Rabotai, there is an objective to reach. That objective cannot be reached in any which way that we want. So now, the Gemara tells us that to sanctify yourself brings these holy children, these beautiful children. But the Ramban still added something to it and said that they were not only holy children, beautiful children, but they were also scholars. As a side note, Rav Kanievsky, alav shalom, when people will come to him and ask him for prayer or skula or something to bring children to the world, he used to open this Gemara in Masechet Sukkah, page 18b, and he said that in the beginning of this Gemara it says, whoever drinks wine for Avdalah and separates the holy from the mundane to sanctify himself brings children that will become scholars. So they ask, what's the connection? What's the connection of wine to sanctifying yourself? The Ravad wrote a similar sefer to the Ramban, Rabbi Avraham ben David, Sefer Baalei HaNefesh. And he gives a hint, or no more than a hint, of explaining what the Gemara says, and thereby will eventually explain what Rav Kanievsky said. The Ravad says that a person needs to have 4 kavanot, 4 intentions when they're intimate with their wife. 1, you're fulfilling the mitzvah of pru'urbu, of bringing children to the world, if it's still possible. in order for those kids, just like the Shulchan Aruch says, in order for those kids to be servants of Hashem. 2, you're thinking of tikkun of the embryo, tikkun of the baby that's inside there. Meaning that even if your wife is already pregnant, there's still intimacy. And when there is intimacy, and you know she can't get pregnant again, you still do it with with sanctification of Hashem's name in mind. Why? Because now you're thinking of that there is the first, the Gemara says in Masechet Nida, page 31a, that there are periods, the trimesters have different pros and cons of the man and his wife being together. In the first 3 months, there's no benefit to the baby and no benefit to the mother. Second trimester, it's good for the baby and there's no benefit to the mom. The third trimester, typically it's a time that people want to be together less, is actually benefit for the husband, for the wife, and for the baby. So when a person thinks, okay, I'm doing this not just for the pure bodily fun, but also because there is a certain rectification of the soul that's in there. There's a certain good that's produced from this act, meaning to turn this act for the heaven's sake. That's the second kavanah. Third kavanah, to fulfill the mitzvot of ona'ah, which is the obligation that the husband signs on a ketubah, that he is going to be with his wife to bring her pleasure at specific times. So that means he already has, my main goal is not for me, but rather for her. And he's even going to pray before the act, she should too, for 2 things. 1, he should read Tehillim number 23. Read Tehillim number 23. 2, he should pray that his wife enjoy herself. Because that, in essence, is his intention, not for himself. The 4th kavanah, this will help him avoid sin. Because the seed has to exit the body at some point or another. And the Ramban actually writes that him being with his wife is also fulfilling a mitzvah of shomeret nafsho, that he's keeping himself healthy. Now again, everything within reason, not like some donkey or some rooster, but nonetheless, there's a mitzvah that you can fulfill if you have it in mind, not if you have, I'm going to have fun in mind. If you have the mitzvah in mind, it's actually fulfilling that mitzvah. Now, still, all we know right now is that we see that there are sources in the Gemara that a man that's with his wife sanctifies himself. He's going to bring boys to the world. But the Ramban added something and he says, no, it's not just boys, it is boys that are going to be scholars. Through your doing it for Shem Shamayim. And the Rav Kanievsky, alav shalom, he said, yeah, this is right. But he mentioned a different Gemara. He mentioned the same Gemara, same page, but he mentioned what preceded this sentence, which was that the Avdalah of wine, doing Avdalah, Motzei Shabbat with wine, that brings scholars. So the Gemara Masechet Nida, page 70b, and then goes on to 71a, says, what should a person do to have sons? Rabbi Yoshua says, he should marry a woman who is spiritually appropriate for him, and he should sanctify himself during marital relations. So the sages said to him, many have done so, and have not been successful. Meaning, many have sanctified themselves, Many have married, after they found a good woman, and it was not enough. They didn't merit to have sons. And he said to them, then he should plead for the mercy. He should plead for mercy from the one who the children belong to, meaning to pray to Hashem. As it is written in a Psalm 127:3, behold the heritage bestowed by Hashem, his children, the reward of the fruit of the womb. So what is Rabbi Yoshua teaching us here right now? We already knew from the other Gemarot that if he sanctifies himself after choosing the right woman, that was to bring kids. But they said, but it doesn't work. It's not enough. He says, yeah, he should pray. So what's he really teaching here? He says that if you do one without the other, it won't be enough. If you find the right girl, but you're together, but not in a holy way, it won't help. If you find the right girl and you're together in a holy way, it won't be enough. You have to be together in a holy way and pray to HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Now the question is, what's a holy way? How does a person sanctify themselves? We said, have the right kavanah, as far as the intention, but there's more to it. Rabbi Yonatan says, to sanctify himself, first and foremost, make sure there's no other woman on his mind. Rashi al Makom says, sanctifying himself to make sure that he's modest even during the act. The way he is, how he is, what he talks about, what's on his mind. So how does this all conclude? If a person sanctifies themselves during the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will sanctify them at night. If a person sanctifies himself in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will sanctify them in the next world. Now, to sanctify yourself, to make yourself holy, both men and female, requires a person to start determining their acts in their life differently. Not based on their desires, but based on what's going to lead them to connect to Hashem. If they're already going to be able to do it during the day, with their eating and their drinking and their working and their giving and their taking and everything else, it becomes second nature to them. And therefore, when they are even at a time where most people lose control of their emotions and their cool and their mind and their everything, they're already going to think of things in a very different way. They're already going to pray beforehand, think of Hashem beforehand, think of an objective of this act beforehand. And yes, part of the objective is to fulfill the mitzvah of giving pleasure. Part of the objective could be to bring a child to the world, but not just any child, but a child that will serve Hashem. Part of the objective is going to be to make sure that you have the right mindset, but also part of the objective is to push yourself further in your own holiness and seeing how your mind is working before, during, after. And all of that is a process of sanctifying yourself, which initially sounds difficult, boring, crazy, whatever your Yetzirah is going to tell you. So that's why in the beginning we talk about the outcome. The outcome of doing it yields not only children, not only males that are coming to the world, but also ones that are going to serve Hashem. They're going to become talmidei chachamim, the highest possible level, the most beautiful both in and out. On the other hand, not doing it makes the person more vulnerable to getting children that we're going to regret they ever had. And therefore, Rav Kanievsky, when they asked him for blessings for children, he didn't bring him the Gemara we discussed initially of a person sanctifies himself and that's going to bring him children, but rather he said the Gemara that preceded it, which is a person that drinks the wine of Avdallah and separates the holy and the mundane, that's going to bring him those wise kids. Why? He says, just like we see that to HaKodesh Baruch Hu is specific about his mitzvot, about the tzitzit, about Shema Yisrael, about Amidah, about Birkat HaMazon, Avdalah, the wine. Why? Separating the holy from the mundane. Separating the chosen people from everything else. If you're able to comprehend that, then you're able to handle separating yourself even during the act of intimacy and end up turning that act of intimacy from being like everyone else, mundane bulls and bears, to being something holy. And that in itself will give you holy children that are extraordinary scholars, that are beautiful in and out. And in the process, an extraordinary marriage full of love, full of honor, full of compassion for each other, full of care, that's simply endless. Because as you become holy, your marriage becomes holy. Your relationship becomes holy. Your house becomes holy. Everything becomes holy. So in essence, while you're doing the will of Hashem and serving Him in every single action that you do, by simply connecting everything to Him, I'm going to eat this or go there or give this because this will bring more honor to Hashem and not because it's going to give me pleasure. This will connect me more deep to Hashem. Not because I decide it's going to connect me more to Hashem, but because that's what the Torah says. It's going to connect me more to Hashem. When a person does the small things with Hashem in mind, the bigger things become easier. And the bigger things can even become natural. So much so that their whole life, that's second nature to them, becomes supernatural to the world around them. But like the Gaon Vilna said, it's not a sgula. It's simply following what the Torah says. Hashem said, you be holy because I'm holy. Rashi says, holiness that's mentioned everywhere in the Torah always is referring to the intimacy between a man and his wife. The Ramban adds to it, it's not just the intimacy between a man and his wife, but rather how much, when, how, the details, lest we become animals that say, oh, since it's allowed to eat because it's kosher, I'll eat like a pig. Since it's allowed to drink, I'm going to drink like a camel. Since it's allowed to procreate, I'm going to procreate like a rooster and become despicable in the eyes of the Torah. So yes, there is halachic permissions to do certain things. The question we have to always ask ourselves, what do we want the results to be? Do we want the results to be the results of people that do what they desire and the outcome of that? Or the results of doing the will of Hashem and the results that come out of that? The desire, even if it's permissible, doesn't yield you good. Desire of Hashem is good already from the beginning, and certainly nothing that Hashem produces is bad. With that being said, this too will be another way that we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and get closer and closer to the next parts of sanctifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, even in the acts that we never even thought were relevant. Next week, BeEzrat Hashem, we'll go into chapter number 1 of knowing and understanding the topic altogether, the different details between him and her, details that the world has perhaps read but never heard. We'll shed light on it. Each time we think of these things, we should think of them differently. So much so that it transforms our life. It transforms our desires, and it transforms even our servitude of Hashem from what it is to where it should be. We want to serve Hashem. That's what we're created for. This too is not only a way of doing it, but the Yavet says, when it's done with the right kavana, the right time, there is no act in the world that is holier than it. May be His will, and may we receive His help to achieve that. Not just as individuals, but as a nation. Imagine the holiness that will come to the world if everyone just simply took this into account, even without the rest of the shiurim we've done, or we're going to do. Just these 2 shiurim. Imagine if every couple, before they were together, took all of what we just learned together into account. What kind of children will be born from that? What kind of society would we have? What kind of prayers would we have? What kind of teachers would we have? What kind of world would we have? Now, we can't change the past, and certainly we can't change the entire world. But we can change ourselves. And if somebody ever asks, Ima Shalom, how are all your kids so beautiful? You tell them, there's a shiur online. You can watch it for free. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen. Shalom v'chai everybody. Very happy to announce a major event coming up in Eretz Yisrael. This event is going to be unlike any other we've done as an organization. Last year we had a group of young guys that completed the entire Shas, Bavli, and the Mishnayot in a single year. This year we're going to have the entire foundation of the oral Torah completed in a single night. Our own dear Ephraim and other talmidim of the organization. In a single night we'll have the completion of the Shas Bavli, Shas Mishnayot, the Zohar HaKadosh, Zohar Chadash, Tikkunei Zohar, and the Shulchan Aruch. Years and years of toil, lots of effort is coming to fruition, and in a single night, all of it would be completed to sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name. This is going to be a night where many Rabbanim, many Tzaddikim will be joining us at this event. There'll be hundreds and hundreds of people at the event in Eretz Yisrael, including the Rishon LeZion, Rabbi Yosef, of course, our own very dear Rabbi Ephraim Kachlon. I myself will also be joining, coming to Eretz Yisrael for the first time in many years, to join this monumental event, this monumental Kiddush Hashem, in order to sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name, to show Him how much we love His Torah, how dedicated we are to His Torah, and to be able to, BeEzrat Hashem, give chizuk to Am Yisrael in another way.
BeEzrat Hashem, ארגון BeEzrat Hashem, מתעתד לעשות כנס גדול, שם יהיה סיום על עיקרי התורה שבעל פה, שזה סיום כל התלמוד בבלי, סיום כל 6 סדרי משנה, סיום כל הזוהר הקדוש ותיקוני הזוהר, וסיום כל השולחן ערוך. בדרך כלל לוקח זמן כדי לסיים את כל הספרים הללו, 30 שנה, 40 שנה, ובסייעתא דשמיא הארגון בעזרת השם עושה את הכנס לכל כלל ישראל. כולם מוזמנים.
We're looking forward for this event. We're also looking forward to seeing some of you that are going to be joining us. There are going to be some sponsorship opportunities for anyone that wants to be able to be a part of it. And of course, there'll be a opportunity for any of you that want to join us, one way or the other. Last but not least, there will also be a raffle that we'll be announcing very soon for anyone that wants to join the raffle and also be able to do kiruv at the same time. The winner of the raffle will win a flight ticket to Eretz Israel and be able to join us at the event. So please look out for more news. Looking forward to seeing you at this event. And BeEzrat Hashem, Naaseh v'Natzliach.